Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Strategoi video. Ryan here today with a follow-up to our recent Team Serbia AoS Worlds coverage with yet another team interview, this time with that of my home country, the Netherlands. Even though I'm American, and Nick, who's also on the team, is American, we both live here. And of course, I'm playing with Serbia. But Nick is playing with the Dutch team, and we're friends with everyone on the team and a big part of the community and know these guys pretty well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this interview as much as I did. It was super great talking with and about all of my friends, and we really hope to expand this to other teams in the future. But this year we had time for the two that we're most closely connected to. Anyway, in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you in at the end of the video. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Strategoi video. Following up with our recent post that we did with Team Serbia in preparation for AoS Worlds, we have our local heroes here. Maybe not as local for Jonas here, but definitely my buddies in Team the Netherlands. We have Nick, who's our frequent guest on the channel. Hey Nick, how's it going?
Great, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Again.
and is this the second time you've been on camera or third on the channel? I think second
I think
for
it's
you
the
and
second.
Talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we've got team captain Jeffrey here. Jeffrey, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm great. Almost time to hit the table, so can't wait.
Yeah, what is it? If we singles starts a week from from yesterday. So and then team starts on a week from tomorrow. So from when we're recording, but by the time this goes live, it'll be even closer, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're obviously continuing the local love here for teams that Strategoi people are involved with. Maybe next year we'll expand to Team Belgium or some other teams that we have more direct contact with. But in the meantime, I think 2 was ambitious enough for our first go around. Jonas, what are you expecting from today's talk after what Serbia's talk was like the other day?
Well, I mean, standards are high. The Serbians came in hot with a very good vibe. I expect we'll manage that vibe as well. I don't expect really anything useful out of Nick. Mostly, we're way past that point now. But you know that's his talent, right?
Right. I bring nothing and anything to the table.
And he still ended up in the world's team. Like, how did he manage that?
Oh, we'll get into that.
Yeah. Not on stream, please.
Oh, sorry.
and Jeff, you this is your first year as captain, which we can talk a little bit about how that experience has been, if you like. And
yeah, sure.
Also, but you played on the team last year, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Was last year the first time that the team played in Worlds, or had you guys done it before?
Yes, no, it was. I think they were supposed to head to Milan as well the year before, but yeah, last year was our first year as the Dutch team.
Yeah, so that could be interesting to talk about what your expectations are going in as a second year running here, whereas Team Serbia, this is their first. So I feel like this is kind of a totally new experience for them, and they're super psyched. I don't know, something else that might be interesting is how many players you guys have on the team that are also doing singles, and whether that takes a kind of an impact, whether that's something you guys learned a lesson from last year or it doesn't make a big difference. Just while we're on the topic, and it's come up organically, do you have any thoughts about that? How many players on Team the Netherlands are playing singles as well?
I think like from the playing people in the team, I think only one guy is playing singles.
And last year, did you guys have more, or?
Yeah, last year we had more. I was also part of the people playing in singles last year, and it has pros and cons. I mean, it's great practice. I've also seen other countries play day 1 and drop out day 2 because
Sure.
it was they felt like it was gonna be too much. But it's great practice, especially if you swap to a new army, get to know the environment. But I think it depends a bit on your own state at the time. If you're fit, it's long days, right? Especially the singles days, because teams at least only has 2 games. You start a bit late, you have a long break, and singles is just, I'm always exhausted after a GT. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the downside. I just, I hope the people playing in singles are not too exhausted on day
Sure.
3 of the team's event.
Yeah.
But
For those
yeah,
that don't know, it's singles is a normal GT of 3 games, 2 games the 2 days before, and then Worlds is 2 games, 2 games, 2 games for 3 days. So you could potentially be playing 11 games, and then
yeah,
it could be even more if you're trying to load in games like you get in town Tuesday night beforehand. So you could be playing upwards of 12 plus games in a row in 1 week, which is pretty intense. Jonas, how does that sound to you?
I feel a little bit baited here. It sounds like an absolute nightmare, Ryan. I do wonder, Jeffrey, if say you're participating in singles and also in the team tournaments, would you advise playing the same lists in
yes.
both settings? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some people are always worried about, revealing their tactics or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Most tactics are mostly already out there in terms of the army itself. If you look at all the whole army roster,
Yeah.
you see a lot of the same list.
Yeah.
So, you know, and maybe you use some different tactics on the table, sure. But I don't think other countries' coaches are leaning over your shoulder watching every game you play anyways, right? So and I do think if you play another faction, you might be out of your
Yeah.
flow a
Yeah,
bit.
it's gonna mess you up, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it depends on what army, of course, but yeah. Yeah, I would recommend playing the army you play in teams as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before I get too ahead of myself, because I kind of went on a tangent there, Jeffrey, this is not your first time to be on camera for the greater AoS kind of YouTube sphere. You've been on Honest Wargamer at least a couple times, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, welcome back. We hope to
Thanks.
see your face some more too, and of course, everyone knows Nick from frequent visits and tournament reviews and talking about FEC 69 and whatever else is going on. Feeding Time 69.
Cheating time 69. Get it right.
God.
So before we move on, everyone that's at home, feel free to, of course, like and share, subscribe, all the good YouTube stuff, and join us in the Discord for following up with some more comments. And Jeffrey, is there a place to be in touch with Team the Netherlands, like on the internet in general, or do you guys have like the Twitter, or what's kind of going on with that?
We actually, I changed some stuff this year. So I rewrote the charter. I made some social media accounts, and it's all connected to a Gmail, especially made for the team. So each year the new captain can just, grab the email and the password. Then we have Discord. We have a WhatsApp group that has a lot of information, and people can always enter as a prospect, and then usually they get added to the Discord or the WhatsApp group, and see what the team is up to, and when training days are happening, and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to our first topic, I guess, which, if we're following the kind of format from what we did with Serbia, we started with kind of like a team philosophy and the background of the team. And Jeffrey, if you like, this would be a great place to talk about where the team came from last year, how you guys did out of, I think it was 22 countries last year, a couple less.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, but also maybe starting with like, how do you feel the team thinks about Worlds? Like, how do people get chosen? I know Serbia's process is a bit different because it's their first year, and also they're a relatively small community. But like, walk us through what the team building process was like this year, and maybe what your like top priorities were in terms of what you were looking for.
Okay, yeah, interesting topic. Because I also learned a lot this year because it was my first time as a captain and I also stepped in a little late. So I've only been captain for 6 months now. I think we've had some good experiences last year. So for example, I realized that battle plans are pretty important. And I mean, you might think like, yeah, of course it's important, but I mean in terms of pairings, I saw that other countries were really prepared for certain battle plans, and even if you have a green matchup army-wise, some armies just play the battle plan really well, and you just end up uh, running behind and maybe losing even. So that's something I learned from last year. So then we all try to implement those experiences into this year. So and then we have the selection process, of course. So what we are really trying to do is build a bit of a community, So we just want people involved, also people that don't want to run for a spot in the team, but at least want to practice with us, become a better player or just be part of the journey, whatever. So we really try to involve everyone that's willing to be involved. And you can enter as a prospect, as I just mentioned before. So basically, what it means is you pay for a whole year to be a prospect, part of the team, and including in the payment is that the venue will be paid, the food, etc. So that's where it starts. And then what I did this year, I was kind of in an awkward spot, to be honest, because what we usually do is each year we go from all the players, the first couple of months we cut to like 14 or 16 players to make like the first step towards the team. And I think it's good because people, if you wait for a very long time, people will just start wondering where they are at, and it's nice to have a bit of a flow in the selection process. That makes it clear for people where they stand and stuff. What my lesson was, by the way, from sorry, I might be all over the place.
You're fine. It's very interesting.
But what my lesson actually was last year or this year was that giving a lot of feedback is really important.
Yeah.
Because I was really busy with changing the charter, thinking of, because there were no deadlines yet for making cuts, etc. And I just wanted to put everything in place also for the upcoming years and for other captains in the future, and protect the people running for the team as well. I don't want the captain spot to be something you can abuse. So I kind of got caught up sometimes and stuff, and I wasn't really able to give the correct feedback to all the players. So that was a bit of a bummer. So yeah, I think maybe I can also talk about next year, how I would like to do it if I'm captain again. And
I was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
Let's pause for just a second, real quick.
Yeah, sure.
So, without getting into the nitty gritty of everything, people can imagine that this can be quite political, especially if one's community, like let's extrapolate beyond the Netherlands. Like think about the United States, like giant country, a ton of players, but they're all spread out and no one knows each other unless they go to tournaments oftentimes flying to those tournaments. It's difficult to make that kind of connection. What I heard was that they had some kind of getaway or retreat or something like that where they all trained and because they kind of need to. Australia is a little bit the same way, but they're largely coastal. The UK is kind of the opposite in terms of geography, but they also have the most players in the world, from my understanding. And so they have a crazy amount of competition, and they have so many tournaments a year that they really could do like invitationals, and that could be the way that the teams are chosen. Whereas like Serbia, which we've already seen in the previous interview, was basically pulling people together. There's a reason that I'm a mercenary. Jeffrey, you're also kind of you sometimes wear the TO hat when you obviously for Alliance Open things here you're wearing a TO hat often. Do you have a sense for how many of the 24 countries have a reserve player, or not a reserve player, but a mercenary player on them?
I think there's a few. Because I also, I'm not sure. I think Freddy Legend from, I'm not sure where he's from again. Sorry, but he was the UN captain. He's also in a team.
Okay.
So
I
yeah,
wonder if Finland has some as a reserve or a mercenary player. I could be wrong about that, but I heard that one of the Scandinavian countries has at least one British player on the team. But I don't know. In any case, the politics of the situation can get pretty complicated depending on what the local meta is like, what communication is like with people. The team this year is the second time the Netherlands has done it, and I imagine as the team kind of evolves and we keep doing Worlds. And I say we because I train with you guys, I hang out with you guys, I play tournaments here, so I'm not on the team, but I feel very close to you guys, obviously. So I might interject we every once in a while. But
yeah, that's fine.
Stop it.
But
you're one of us, man. Don't worry.
But I mean, but the scene, if Jonas, if we ever do have Belgium on, that's its own interesting conversation for multiple reasons, largely language-based reasons.
Yeah, it's even smaller than the Netherlands, and I think it's not hard for me to imagine that at some point there's going to be two Belgian teams, one for the Dutch-speaking part and one for the French-speaking part.
Right. Yeah, but let's be honest, right? I mean, it's like all the players in the Belgian team now are all speaking French.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it does obviously give an advantage for communication, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, speaking of which, this is a perfect place to draw Nick into the conversation.
Nick, I don't know what you're talking about.
Nick is busy learning some Dutch, but he doesn't play in Dutch with the guys. Nick, obviously, I'm playing on the Serbian team, and I don't speak a lick of Serbian. So that whole team is speaking. Our entire Discord and our whole WhatsApp chat is entirely in English, because I'm there, which is really sweet. Nick, have you had any problems with communicating with the team itself? Obviously, if you're in like a bigger WhatsApp chat that's like lots of non-Worlds players, then it's going to largely go back to Dutch. But how has the experience been for integrating that way with the team?
Yeah, so it's been super fun, and I say that because like you're saying, like it'll just rattle off in Dutch for a second, and I'll just respond yes, just randomly out of all. So. But no, I've gotten pretty good at Google Translate, like fast. Figured that out pretty quickly on like my different devices and whatnot. But overall, it's been pretty easy. And thanks to the lessons, and playing with you guys enough and being in the community enough, I'm able to pick up a lot of the words. So, like especially when we were doing the pairings, because some of I'm taking Tom's word for it, sorry, but a lot of the words aren't necessarily Dutch, a lot of the Warhammer words, so it's actually not the worst to follow along. There's some where I'm like, but I can kind of guess what they meant. So it actually hasn't been that bad when we're trying to use Dutch to, like, talk in front of people and, strategize, and I can pretty much keep up. There's other parts where, like I've said before, like when we start getting into like accents, some people I'm just like, I'm sorry, I got nothing for you. I can't follow you at all. But other people, it's a little bit easier. But yeah, I'd say it's been fine. Very manageable. The team is very accommodating that way, which is nice. And then Dawa, our coach, he's intentionally just saying things to me in Dutch and just stares at me until I try and figure it out, which is nice. He's pushing me to learn it more, which I ultimately wanted to do. I took the classes for work. That's how I got them. But the big catalyst. If you let me get there, you second. No. But the real catalyst was that I wanted to be able to do that in Worlds, to be able to understand a little bit more and play with the team. But yeah.
Yeah. So Nick, you've played in Belgium a few times now.
Yes.
When you talk about accents, do you find the Flemish accent harder to understand?
I haven't tried, so I think that's yes, because like it doesn't register to me as Dutch.
I mean, we can schedule in some weekly sessions if you want, Nick.
I'm always open to weekly sessions.
You've got it's smakelijk down, so
It's smakelijk. I got even kijken. I can order some beers, so other things like that, and I will usually just yell words that I know, like my war cry. Like I want us to do like the 1, 2, 3 Sinterklaas, like for our game. I think that'll be great. But yeah, just things like that.
Yeah, he also calls us mevrouw a lot.
Yeah.
yeah.
Nick.
I wonder with Worlds being in Amsterdam now, how many players that are new to Amsterdam are gonna pick up some words in Dutch, and which ones that they're going to be.
Here's the problem is that, and I really hate this about Worlds. You guys can tell me, Jeffrey, you were at in Prague last year, but because it's so, for lack of a better term, I actually feel like most of the Dutch scene is pretty normal people-esque, but there is a little bit of a nerd cloister vibe of some of the Warhammer players in the world, where they go to a tournament and never want to see the city that they're visiting. And to me, that's kind of a bummer. Like, Jonas, you're talking about a bit of cultural integration, or like what you pick up while you're there. I can guarantee you the vast majority of the teams that are coming are going to spend most of their time at the hotel. Yeah. And the hotel is nowhere near, by Dutch definitions of travel time, nowhere near the center of Amsterdam, where you would actually feel like you're actually in Amsterdam. I've written a intro packet for everyone to read about how to get into town and what to see and stuff. I doubt most of them are even going to read it and or take advantage of it. But I really think they would be missing out if they didn't, especially if they paid a lot to come, you know. Everyone's so serious. I guess what I'm doing is critiquing how serious everyone takes Worlds. But at the same time, you paid for like a vacation. And this is a dad hobby at the end of the day. So like, at least on the last day of tournament, try to go out and like see some of the city, right? Like, I think that's a good goal. For those that live here, obviously they see it all the time. So who cares? Jeffrey, what was it like in Croatia? Not Croatia, sorry. In Prague, in the Czech Republic. What was it like there? Were people actually leaving? I know Nicky Boerboom did. I think he's one of the few that went out.
Yeah, he was our reserve player. So, you know, when he found out like I'm probably not dropping in, I might as well enjoy my time here. So, I remember him, using Google Translate, talking with some girls and stuff. It was really fun.
Nice. That sounds right up your alley.
Yeah.
Almost more Eastern Europe block kind of thing.
I love Prague. I've been before. It's super fun.
Yeah.
I made a fool of myself in Prague. Actually, we went to a pirate bar, and our little tiny waitress, she walked up and like slammed the bill with a knife into the table. It was a wooden table. I was like, "Oh, I want to try it," and slid and like cut my entire hand open because I wasn't able to actually do it. It was awesome. So they had to
This wasn't Worlds. This was just you going into town.
Well, like I could have stuck around. You don't know where I was.
Okay, so Jeffrey, how many people you think are actually going to see some of the Netherlands outside of the hotel?
It's actually an interesting topic because, and it also, touches the playing in singles part a little bit, in my opinion. Because what I felt like going to Prague was, you see a lot of people you will usually never see, right? But they are all great players in the scene. You might hear them in the AoS Stat Show from the Honest Wargamer. You might see them on channels, on Discord, whatever. I had a lot of people I wanted to meet. Mm-hmm. And then you get in this awkward space where you need to concentrate and do your games. But you're also somewhere you've never been before with a lot of people you've finally met in real life. So, yeah, sometimes it's hard to balance that out, and that's also maybe a reason if I go abroad again for Worlds, I will still not play singles anymore, because then I have some extra time off to see the city, to, hang out with people, because trust me, if you go to the tournament, all you do is play and eat, maybe take a shower.
Yeah. At best.
Yeah.
One.
And that's about it, man.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of a bummer, but it is true. I mean, like, we play 2 games a day. and then you find out how much. When do we find out what our pairing is for the next day? Our matchup for like the first game of the next day. Do we find out within an hour of the second game being over? Of the second game?
Last year we knew in the same evening after a few hours. I'm not
Okay.
sure if it's gonna be the same this year, but I think it will be. I'm not sure. You know, because especially for the teams part, I kind of backed out a little bit on the TOing part. I'm fully there for singles. I'm gonna ref the whole thing and, you know, build the room with the tables and stuff. But for teams, I'm completely I just backed out because I don't want other captains to feel like I have an advantage of some sort. So
That's some serious commitment, though, Jeffrey, to TO a room for 2 full days and then do 3 more days of playing in a team tournament yourself.
Yeah, it kind of is, but you know, at least I don't have to travel. I don't have any oh, I cannot find the word. Help me. What is it called again if you fly to another country?
Yeah, jet lag.
Jet lag.
Jet lag. Thank you. At least I don't have a jet lag. You know, it's nearby. I'm used to it, and we have like 6 refs on the floor. So if I want to take a break, take it easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like usually it's just me and Tom. So this is much more relaxed.
Yeah, and for those wondering who Tom is, Tom we had on in a chat with Nick not too long ago on the channel. He's the TO from the Netherlands that's running the whole thing, and kind of I think he was TO and or maybe some other responsibility for Worlds last year as well. So Tom's becoming a big name in the scene, really.
Yeah, I think actually Michael, who's becoming a kind of a big name in the Antwerp scene here as well, he's also TOing for singles.
Yes.
Yeah. Van Eekhouten.
Yeah.
Do we have a sense, Nick? You're not staying at the hotel. I'm not staying at the hotel because we can easily get back. Is there news?
There's slight news. I got a room on Thursday night so that to do like the pre-festivities. So I assume we'll hit the bar, which you're more than welcome to crash in my room as per usual, Ryan.
You and I don't crash. We do more than
we
crash.
Spoon. Yes. He keeps me warm with all that chest hair. So I figured with everybody checking in, you know, kind of, I wanted to be there for that part where the team all gets together. We do that first chat. All right, here's the plan tomorrow, and then we do 1, 2, 3 Sinterklaas, and then we go to the bar. So I got a room for the first night. Out of curiosity, I wanted to see if it was how much it would be for the whole weekend, and they told me no. There's no slots available. So hotel is completely booked over the weekend. But
Okay.
yeah, so just the Thursday to Friday.
Jeffrey, do you have a sense for the rest of the team? Because obviously we're the weird home team case where so many people can just commute. Now, some of them, the Dutch scene, in contrast to Serbia, most of the Serbian players live in and around Belgrade, which means they can all just play with each other. But we're relatively spread out. I mean, we have people from the south, from a little bit further east. We obviously have people here in the Amsterdam area. I'm assuming some of those players are going to stay at the hotel the whole time just because it's easier.
Yes. Yeah. I'm also staying at the hotel, of course, but I think most are staying in the hotel itself. I think some are even staying in a cheaper hotel nearby. But this year I was like, you know, I don't care. Just do what you want to do. Be there on time.
Right.
But if we go abroad, I will probably try and book everything together, of course. But yeah, I just this year I was like, you know, do what you want to do. So I have no clue where everyone's staying, to be honest. As long as they are there in the evenings in the hotel to talk some strategies with me, then it's all good.
So I kind of let us get off track with our philosophy discussion, but maybe we could start that right now. Is there anything in particular you would like to mention about the kind of Dutch team philosophy of how the team should interact, how you're approaching Worlds? Anything that comes to mind with that kind of over topic there?
So do you mean like how we approach Worlds as a team right now, or are you still aiming?
Or what you were looking for with membership? You know, like
okay.
Obviously it's not just having a wide variety of armies, because obviously some of the players, Nick included, are playing armies that they don't actually play, as in they don't own. That could be a part of it too. But anything that makes sense, or like what your like big idea goals were. For example, Serbia was very much interested in it being a friendship kind of thing. But the more competitive a country gets and the bigger their scene gets, probably the less of a thing that is. For example, in the States, I don't know that they need to be friends at all. They need to get along okay, but like at the end of the day, they're so far apart that how important is that really for choosing your team? Obviously, here we have a tighter scene, but where does that sit? Like personalities and getting along or being friends from before, is that a big part of the team? That kind of thing.
It's something I'm aiming towards more in the sense of I want to build a team, same as any other team sports. You need to work together, kind of. And I want a good atmosphere there when, we have to spend a few days with each other. So I would like to, you don't have to be best friends, but at least we're all adults, right? Just get along.
Right.
But I really tried, and especially since it's in our home country, we had way more access to people. It was a bit of a combination because we went to Prague for the first time. People got a bit of FOMO, maybe, like, oh, I want to go as well. We got a lot of extra applications in. But I'm sure because we won the bid that it also played a factor in, applications being sent in more than the year before. So that changed our options actually, because last year I think it was more about who's willing to go and we need to find 8 people. And this year we could change our point of view and try to get the most competitive team we can. So with that in mind, I was really trying to figure out what it takes to be a good player. And it's really hard, right? Because some people thought I was only looking at win rates or something. But if you face a hard counter or having a bad day, in the end it's not just about winning. I think it's a very complex game. The meta shifts all the time, so what I was really trying to look for are flexible people. People that are willing to dissect a book really fast and swap armies. And I knew I couldn't find 8 people doing this, but I just, I see that as a very good quality. So if I see that in a person, that is a big plus for me. And it's very nuanced. I don't know. It's a bit of a personal feeling also, maybe. If I play against people, I just sometimes see potential in how they view the game. And Nick as an example, I was able to really see what kind of a player he is, like what kind of armies he likes to play. And I texted him like, hey, I'm thinking you are this kind of a player. And he said like, yeah, you're spot on. So you cannot do this with everyone, but once you can pin some people towards a certain play style or anything, you can, that's good, because then you can put them in some kind of a category for possible armies to play. So yeah, it's I can talk hours about this.
Jonas, please.
This kind of speaks to Nick's skill and tactical acumen, right? That, as you mentioned, Jeffrey, there was a much larger pool now to select players from, and still you merged in Nick because he's just that good, I guess.
I am not a merc, buddy.
Oh, does it not count because you live in...
I fit the criteria. Yeah, I've been here for enough years that I officially meet the quality, though.
All right, I didn't know how the selection procedure in that aspect plays. Oh, that's even better.
yeah.
You know, I don't know, Nick. Would you be able to play in Germany if for some reason they asked you and it's not a Merc because you have a German passport?
I do. Yeah, that's one of the criteria is I can prove that I have that citizenship. So yeah,
Oh,
I can
okay.
play for the U.S., Germany, and Netherlands without being
That's
a
so
Merc.
cool. So
Yeah.
so it's just it just has to be on your passport and that's it.
Well, so
Or
I think it's yeah, it's just it's the citizenship. So I
Yeah.
have to have that. Yeah, and I have dual at the
or
moment.
being here for 3 years. So
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
yeah. That's Paul Poissy. He played for Belgium last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
He was looking into. He had a kid recently, but he was looking into playing in the Netherlands this year. He lives in Amsterdam, has been living here for a long time, and he's of French nationality. So he could have done 3 different things probably if he really pushed on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty flexible.
Okay, I didn't know that worked that way. I'm sorry if I
No,
somewhat
no.
vaguely
I'm
offended you, by
thinking
the way, Nick, because
I'm thinking in my head I should probably apologize because I was making a joke. Like it's no. I didn't
oh
know.
no, but I mean you're
Yeah.
right to call it out though. I was not aware
Yeah.
about of the situation, but still, I mean it's very cool how you got drafted because this is the first time you're playing in Worlds, right, Nick, or no?
Yeah. So I'd actually started with Ryan. He said, "Hey, you should come train with us," and I was like, "Train for what now?" And then so he was saying he was playing for World. So I actually sent Jeff a very grovelly text of, "I'd love to play with you guys. It'd be super fun, super awesome." And then yeah, then he said, "Yeah, come play with us." And then yeah, the rest is kind of history from there. But it was Ryan that really introduced me to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think, like Jeffrey was alluding to, the selection process is something that's constantly being evolved, and as each year takes place, like Jeffrey said, I think it's going to continue to be refined so that it's more clear exactly how. Like Nick, at that time, we talked about it. We weren't sure if you had to be invited to come or not, or if you could put
Yeah.
your name. And so that was one of those clarification moments. I think that.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was really what I was asking in the text to Jeff. I was like, "Hey, I don't know if it's too little, too late, but just curious if I can join in with you guys or how this process works." And that's how I got
Yeah,
started.
I mean, people are always welcome to train. I also try to invite people sometimes. You know, when I see someone performing well, or when I see that people from abroad are coming in and staying here for a while, I try to get them to train with us. Like in the end, it's also our hobby, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we are all trying to play competitive, and sure, but it's still a hobby. Everyone should be welcome. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny because not long after Nick joined us, I selected him for because I when you joined right about that time I became a captain as well, and I really tried to mix things up really fast in a short amount of time. And I think you were really surprised, right?
Yeah. I when I was talking with Ryan, I was like, "There's no way in hell that I'm going to make it." But at the very least, I'm getting really quality games in these training days. You know, playing against the other like the best people in the Netherlands right now. So you know, I had nothing to lose. I was like, "Yeah, this is great. I get to learn a lot and you know get some more games in." And then
I almost feel like you're selling yourself a bit short there, Nick, because honestly, the last time Ryan and I played when I was visiting you guys in Amsterdam, and you gave some very sage advice. I feel like you would also, if you were ever sick of being a player, you would be such a great coach because I do feel that you analyze situations super well. Um, Even when you're playing, but even more so, I think when you're not playing, because you can really play both sides even better than when you're in the game itself. I was really, I mean, I knew you were very good because I played you and I felt how good you were because I think my list when we were playing against each other for the first time, I think theoretically my list had the advantage.
oh yeah, absolutely.
And you really, really trampled over me.
No, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of things all like at the same time. So I didn't have confidence in that this would be the year for it. And plus, I've only played in some of the GTs in the local scene, so not really being too heavily involved. So yeah, but it was a nice change. And it was a really awesome surprise, and I was really excited about the chance to progress because at that point I hadn't actually made the team. It was just the first cut. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, great. That again, happy to keep getting quality games in, and this also is the motivation to even get better and be like, okay, I made the first one. I would really like to see how far I can actually take this thing, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, and I also think. Oh,
no,
sorry.
go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I also think like because a lot of people might not know yet how to get involved and stuff, and you know next year I can really try and recruit some people right from the start and get them, you know, at least ask them like, hey, are you interested? Because also for me it was hard. I didn't know Nick was interested, but I definitely had an eye on a few people, and you know both Ryan and Nick were really on my radar anyway, so it
Yeah.
was great that they joined.
If I can piggyback on that comment from you, Jeffrey, do you guys ever wish that there was a more official way of applying for Worlds or for being part of a Worlds team? I mean, and this is directed to you, Jeffrey, but also to you, Nick, and you, Ryan. I almost feel like, as we mentioned before, certain teams are mostly assembled because one of the friends group just decides, okay, I'm going to be captain now. We're going to represent our country, and I'm bringing some friends. And I think that's been the case for a lot of countries when they participate for the first time, probably. And as years go on, I imagine the teams getting more and more competitive because you start adding in players that are actually the best in your country and not necessarily just really great players and friends. I think right now Age of Sigmar is in that in-between stage where it's almost very official and very competitive in the world setting, but there's still a lot of teams, I feel, that are mostly comprised of a very small number of players. I mean, look at Team Belgium. It's very weird that there's no player from the Flemish part, right? And you're not telling me that there's not a single great tournament player in that part, right? So that amazes me a little bit. Would you guys ever wish there was an official way of, you know, prepping or applying or vetting people?
Um, yeah, when I look at other countries, every country has their own system, and if you take the French one, it's like the most complex system I've ever heard about. But you know, I think for Worlds as an organization, because it's still run by other captains and people applying and stuff, it's hard to control that kind of stuff. So they really leave it to each country. And yeah, I feel like there should be a good way that this is monitored and fair, right? So that's also a reason why I wrote a charter that's not supposed to be changed in the future. And if it is changed, it should be, you know, written down and voted by on all the people involved and stuff. So yeah, I think it's important. But it's really hard because it's not a company, it's nothing official.
Yeah.
The captaincy can change each year, so yeah, I don't know what the right way is yet, but yeah. What do you think, Nick? Because you know, was it hard for you to, or unclear for you,
Well, I
how the team worked?
I think it's kind of a combination of what you said earlier. If you don't know, it's kind of hard to find out, right? If you're not involved, so like I got lucky by Ryan saying, "Hey, I'm involved in this. You should text and ask." And I was like, "Okay, great." But if you never have that bit of an invite or a pseudo invite, you're not really going to find out. Um, so I think yes and no to your question, Jeffrey, and then to your question, Jonas. What I would like, because I don't think a cookie cutter sort of standardization way will work for every country.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that you could potentially, let's say, go with the idea that the world's, I don't know, are they committee? What are they called? Council requires like a charter that needs to meet a certain set of standards. Like how does captaincy check the boxes, and then you can do however you want to do, but you have to have a minimum to make sure that you do have a fair way for anybody to join. It's not turning into like a corruption of politics. You give me €100 and you're on the team, kid, something like that. Just at least on paper, the attempt to show transparency and things like that, and that everyone has an equal shot with that. I think that would be kind of a good idea, but then you still have the flexibility to make a system that fits your community.
Yeah,
um,
that's actually a very good point. I agree because the way charters work a lot of the times is, you know, it's easy to hold a country hostage as a
Yeah.
captain. It sounds weird, but yeah. and that's something that's really toxic for the community, right? So that should be avoided at all costs. So I really wish that the commission from Worlds itself is involved in this process a little bit, you know, at least monitoring it, or having like a desk where you can file a complaint and they look into it or something.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the big question mark thing is that most teams don't have funding per se. You guys have a certain amount of funding from sponsors, but where this really starts to kick in a limit for people that can't afford to go. So if each team member has to, they don't even get to qualify unless they're serious about it. So like, I think in the charter you guys had, or at least something I read with you guys, it said you have to be willing to pay for this, this, and this if it comes to it, which I think this year it didn't for some things. But you had to come to a certain number of meetings, you had to do blah 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 in order to be seriously, taking into consideration. Because obviously, if someone in the last minute drops out because they're like, "Oh, I can't afford it," or something came up with work or whatever, the team's kind of in a bad place. So not everyone can meet those demands, especially let's say you're from Australia and you got to fly a
Yeah.
24-hour days worth of flying to go to Worlds, So I imagine that's one of the reasons why the Worlds Commission doesn't want to set too stringent of a kind of protocol for how this has to play out, because if they do, certain countries are going to have different barriers to entry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and obviously, as the home country, it couldn't be easier. As you were alluding to, Jeffrey, you had way more
Yeah.
people wanting to play. It couldn't be easier than if you just have to kind of hop on a train that is relatively cheap for you. And I don't even have to stay at the hotel in order to play. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. In the interest of time, if it's okay with everyone else, I thought we'd go on to kind of the topic of army selection. And not necessarily, we don't have to go into the whole meta thing. Anyone that really wants to know, I'm sure Honest Wargamer Raub is going to go into way more detail about why the armies are there. And he's already done a couple videos on this anyway. But I thought maybe, Jeffrey, we could start with your list in particular, not the list, but army choice, because this would be a nice contrast to what we covered with Natasha from Serbia, who also plays Daughters and Slanesh. And she went the other direction. We even alluded to it in the chat there, knowing ahead of time that you had done the same, but in the opposite direction. Why she stuck with Daughters? Why did you switch from Daughters to Slanesh? Is it more meta choice? What was going on? Or you feel like Daughters isn't in quite the same place it used to be? And then we can kind of extrapolate this to a couple other players who had particularly difficult choices with which army they would play. Nick, you're an obvious choice since it's not even your own army per se. So, but Jeffrey, why don't we get started with your end of this and then move on to anyone else you find is interesting?
Yeah, so I played Daughters last year as well. The old regular Morathian the Bow Snakes. Everyone knows it by now. Pretty straightforward. It's still in a decent spot. But everyone has seen this by now, right? So I'm not gonna be a surprise. Also, it has had a few nerfs already. It were minor ones, but you know they keep stacking up. Um, and screens are just very important, even more than before, in my opinion at least. And you know they just keep cutting in my screen, so I kind of start feeling uncomfortable with them. I was looking into playing some other armies, and I just kept myself open actually for I was really busy with everyone else in the team, trying to help them and trying to build a good roster. And I was like, I'm just gonna be the flexible guy. If we need a shooting army, I'm gonna play the shooting army. If we need fire slayers, I'm gonna play fire slayers, right? Um, So when we were getting close to a decision, I saw that we were actually not really having a shooting army. So I kind of fell back to Morath and the Bow Snakes. I even brought it to Germany as well. Um, for people that don't know, there was a great 8-man tournament in Germany in March. So great practice for us. Um, yeah, and actually, they still performed pretty well, so I was surprised, in a good way. And then Slanesh came out, and those archers were just very good. It's how do you say that? Like it's the same playstyle, right, as the Morathi and the Bowsnakes. Because you have your, at least the way I play it, I have my Glutos. It's a bit of a Morathi. He doesn't die as easy. Uh, so I was just thinking that since this is a new book, even if they are similar, Slanesh at least is new. Not everyone has played against it, so maybe I can catch people by surprise a bit. The temptation dice are really good, so yeah, that I think the surprise part was my number one reason, and I'm glad I did because I've done a lot of games already, and yeah, I'm happy about it.
Are you playing a pretenders list?
Yeah,
Okay.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, I feel like that's the obvious choice. And for those that don't know, it's essentially you get all the command abilities you want as long as your general lives. Which, now that I think about it, kind of reminds me of Zinch. Everyone talks about Destiny Knights cheating. This is just command points cheating. It really
Yeah.
is. You get to do unlimited amount as long as that guy's alive, and he stays alive pretty long. And a second point, Nick, I don't know if you remember, we had a discussion about a month ago where I said that Daughters and Slanesh are very similar armies and play very similarly. And I swear you were like, no, that's not true at all. And here is your team captain playing it on his own accord.
I don't remember this at all.
Ryan getting in the "I told you so" on camera.
Jeffrey started
Right.
talking about it, I just lit up. Anyway,
We proved this in the beginning. I bring nothing to the table, Ryan.
Oh.
So
Interesting fact about the pretenders, by the way, Ryan. I think there's 14 Slanesh lists in the world's team selection right now, and only one is not pretenders.
Yeah.
Sure.
That is crazy, right? That's crazy.
He must have misclicked.
The other one probably was doing the thing that you used before the FAQ. You used to be able to stack unlimitedly. I remember that was something to do with the other, not God Seekers, the other one, or whatever it's called. I forget.
Idolators or something?
No, that's Slays of Darkness.
Oh.
But it's something like that. But Jeffrey, are all the FAQs being applied, even if they came out after the list deadline? Are all the FAQs being applied? Say, for example, the KO one that came out recently, that's being applied to Worlds, right?
Yeah. Okay. So what they did was the FAQs always come out in two sections, right? You have the Q&As, which are just clarifications actually, and you have the erratas, which are hard changes. So what they said is that the Q&As will be used because it's just a clarification and it's nothing really changed. It's just extra tools to help find out how it works. And the erratas they said won't be in play. Yeah. And then you have the KO errata. That one is in play, but that's because they already ruled it that way.
Yeah. Because for those that don't know, some of the people, the higher ups in Worlds, have a bit of an ear to the ground with upcoming GW announcements and things. Like people are closer to the material than we're technically supposed to let on. And so my understanding is that some people had an idea of what was coming down the pipe, had gotten confirmation that these things would be coming out, and therefore by making a kind of in the know decision ends up making it better for the Worlds players at the time of Worlds, because the cutoff date for rules was about 6 weeks before the tournament, and we get in this weird limbo. For example, for those that don't know, Soulblight and OBR are currently using their old books for Worlds. Not that there are many of those armies. I don't think we even have a single OBR army. Maybe we have one, but we have 3 Soulblight armies, if I'm not mistaken, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so those people are using second edition. So that kind of thing. We get caught in this a little bit of the limbo thing. Before we move on, Jeffrey, is there anything else you wanted to say about the daughters Slanesh choice? Is there a version of you that would play daughters if Slanesh hadn't changed? I mean, is that what you would have done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I would have picked ogres because my ogre player got back into KO when the KO book dropped.
Yeah.
So that was also an option for me. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to keep it flowing. If you have something you want to say, definitely please keep going. But this kind of reminds me. I don't know if all the countries are this way. Serbia is certainly not. But Nick, you and the KO player that you're referencing, Jeffrey, which is Mitchell Stahl.
Yes.
He's normally a KO player, but you guys had said our guy Kai Paters, he's willing to paint up some armies.
Yes.
He could offer this ogre army so that Mitchell can train with that and see if this is before KO got its new book. Nick, you're usually a FEC player. You also have Iron Jaws. You have a few other armies. And then you, like, were thinking about slaves. You were thinking about daughters at one point. You ended up playing Gits. These are at least two of your players. I know Mitchell de Boer was thinking about doing, you guys were thinking about putting him on daughters or Nighthaunt at some point, but he plays Sylvaneth, and then he proved that the Oakenbrow build is actually really strong. So maybe this is a great time to bring in all of those different players in as options,
Sure.
unless you can think of someone better to throw in for how flexible. You had mentioned this as one of your high priorities for choosing the team, that you wanted people that could be flexible with if we need to switch the list, especially with this meta that keeps changing so quickly, with all the new books coming out and things just are like churning. Throw something at someone new. Yeah, so maybe let's talk about Nick since he's here. Get him involved in the conversation.
Sure.
Nick,
So, what do you want me to tell you about it? Sorry.
I mean, what is your thought on that process? I know it hasn't been the most organic thing for you because Warhammer, as Jeffrey was talking about, is kind of like at the heart of it, kind of a beer and pretzels kind of game where you play the things you like and the models you like and all that. You're not a Gits fan, like when it comes to the model.
Yeah, so kind of similar to how Jeffrey was talking about before with me trying to be open. I think I was one of also the last slots to fill an army selection when we were kind of going back and forth. So I was just offering myself as like, just tell me what to play and I'll learn that list or what army we need. And then when Gits had dropped, we knew we wanted it, but we hadn't landed for sure that I was going to play it. So again, after a lot of back and forth, we finally said, fine, I'll take on Gits, see how it goes. And this was pre FAQ, so we tried out like the 30 hoppers lists with also the 36 squig herds. So it was pretty good. It went really well in Germany, and so we were very convinced that this thing needs to be here. So we really locked into that. And then looking at the rosters for all of the worlds, it's pretty clear that everyone agrees with that. And what is it, 22 out of 24 or something like that?
Yeah.
21.
21.
Yeah.
89%.
So, yeah. So I played a lot of practice games where we were before the luck came in for Worlds. We saw the the meta review or whatever it's called, and Feck was back up there. And so I remember Jeff going like, you're sure, right? Because we could do it. And then I played a couple of games and then we agreed like, no, we got to have it. Like there's just we can't not bring Gits in our list. And then like we just said, the rest of the world agrees. So we locked in with that one. And yeah, to your point, I hate these models. Like I'm not a cartoony looking, I don't like it. But the playstyle has actually been quite fun. So like I tried to avoid the typical. So how we mentioned the way that Jeffrey kind of like pinpointed how I like to play. So it's been a journey of taking that army and building a list into something and playing it in the way that I actually enjoy and that I excel at. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
You were thinking about slaves at one point, and you guys do have a slaves player on the team, but not playing the type of list you were leaning towards, which would have been more knight cavalry heavy. He's playing a splinter. This is Nico. He's playing a Splinter Fang Archeon build. Do you feel like had you gone with slaves? I think slaves is kind of proven out to not be what everyone thought it was going to be when the book first dropped. A lot of people thought, oh, it's going to be this crazy modular army where everyone's talking about banners and like the Eye of the Gods and it's lots of cavalry. And then I don't think that proved out, right? Vanguard's popular, but the knights are kind of just a wounds soak, right? Like Nick, is there any version of you that wishes you had played that the knights are in kind of cavalry heavy list you were thinking about?
Not in a competitive way. So I still think I would have fun with it, in casual games and building fun, weird lists and rolling on the slot machine, see what happens. But I don't, like you said, I don't think it's like that build, I don't think would have been a very good service in a team setting because it would be difficult to pair. I think there's a lot of good counters against it and very limited options for where it will excel and not just kind of run out of steam. If it doesn't do what it's supposed to, then you're stuck. So
It's pretty
yeah.
straightforward, right?
Yeah.
The way they play.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm not surprising anyone. They're like, "Oh, what? You charged me? Who saw that coming?"
yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
then-
but I also think keep the conversations open about army choice, and I think this is something that went pretty natural between me and Nick. Looking at Nick, but at least it felt for me, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, right up top. Oh, whatever.
Anyways, yeah, so that's
Well-oiled machine, guys. Well-oiled
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah, yeah. No, but that's important to keep the flow, and yeah.
Yeah, Jonas, please.
I mean, in the interest of time, I just want to chime in really quickly. So it's not in the interest of time; it's in the disinterest of time. Is there anything or any army that you wish you would have brought instead, or a list that you would have brought instead? Now that you've seen the other lists.
No. No, I honestly, I think we did a great job. Because everyone turned out to be flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to know how that selection procedure goes, as in what kind of boxes you want to take. But I think that would be an entire different conversation, and we're probably, in the interest of time, we're also looking to move on to the other players here. But yeah, I mean that's just something that popped up into my mind. Like, do you regret bringing any sort of lists or units or something like that?
No, maybe the only army we are missing is Fire Slayers, in my opinion. But at the same time, sometimes they say offense is the best defense, and I think we really, I think we really went with a lot of offensive army lists, and so it's really gonna come down to pairing. So yeah, I'm gonna put our faith in Dao's hands, our coach. And my own as well, of course, since I'm involved with pairings. But he's doing most of the work in terms of the pairings matrix and guiding us and stuff. So
yeah. So I mean, the thought that comes to mind for me here too, and this is again in contrast to Serbia because it's an obvious contrast with these two videos back to back, is how much flexibility you actually have in a certain country or in a certain community to choose other armies. So you guys had not only people that have more, like, keep in mind that GW products are cheaper the closer you get to England. So the products are cheaper here than they are in Serbia, and they're cheaper in Serbia than they are in Australia. So there's that element. So you have more access to getting those models, having them done in time for a tournament, being flexible enough to react to the meta and have all that stuff. But in addition, you guys had Kai, who was willing to, sponsor some stuff and paint some stuff up. And you're right. The team really is, if I had to put a definition on Team the Netherlands, I would say flexibility is one of your strong points. You guys have at least half the team that was seriously considering playing other armies, sometimes armies they don't even own, which is saying something. Like, Nick, you're using Lex's models right now, right? So that's something I don't think a lot of countries would necessarily have access to, and it's a point of privilege, not to create a hierarchy of who has access to what, but England certainly is going to have that. That's another one of those countries that's not gonna. They could just borrow their friend's version of any army, and the best player can bring that if they want. And then 3D printing probably also changes this model a little bit. Where if you can 3D print a spam list last minute that needs to be put together and then have someone speed paint it, that's something that not every country can do. Do you guys have any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I think because we are a small country, we all live nearby, right? Even if you take the two top hands of the country, it's like 2.5 hours. And we meet a lot on training days, so and there's a lot of people willing to help the team, even outside of the selection. So yeah, I think we're quite lucky in that regards that we have access to a lot of armies. And shout out to Stompa Studios. Check him
Yep.
out on Instagram. He's our speed painter. He did an amazing job, painting ogres and beasts of chaos for us this year. So yeah, I think we are quite lucky, to be honest, with these kind of sponsors and help from outside and friendly people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense for what the scene is like in the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, in Vlaanderen?
What
Do you mean army sharing wise, or
Just if they were to have their own team? I know you can't speak. That's why I'm isolating it to your region. But do you have a sense for, like, if they did have a team, would they, because they're even smaller than the Netherlands, you're half of your country, would you guys have, be able to swap out armies that last minute, you think, from the people you know?
Well, I mean, I know the most people from Antwerp, obviously, and I know some of the very good people from Bruges and Ghent. I think most of us play at least 2 or 3 armies, but there's a difference to playing 2 or 3 armies and playing an army well enough to play in a competitive scene, let alone in a world's scene. I'm actually not sure. I was just wondering when you were talking about it, would I be the guy to lend my Lumneth to someone? And honestly, I don't think I would be. I mean, no one's touching those Lumneth models but me. If you've watched Eurotrip, the movie, that is a very good reference.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, but I also asked everyone for their army roster, and right at the start when I was making the cut and checking if people were willing to share their armies, and a lot of people were, so that's good. But I think if you, like, let's be honest, right? If you are in a team, you're going there as a team, you want to win as a team.
Yeah.
And if you can help someone, because a lot of players like Nick, playing Gits, he's purely playing it for the team, right? He doesn't want to own one model, not even one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of hard for me as a captain to ask if they still want to buy it. So I think if you are part of a team and you're in this journey, you might reconsider, I think. Because if you help your teammate,
Yeah,
you're
of course.
helping yourself as well, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if you're good enough to play in a world's team, it probably doesn't really matter if you own the army or even if you've ever played it before. If you're good enough to play in a world's team, you're probably good enough to learn an army in a couple of months, or at least a list in a couple of months, that you know it well enough to play as if you've been playing it for a very long time. But yeah, I might reconsider if I were to be in that scene more on a personal basis, I would probably lend it out. But I don't think if just some guy that I'm not personally friends with, like, I would lend them to Ryan or to Nick, obviously. But I mean, I don't know whether I would lend them to you right now, Jeffrey, if you were to ask, for example, right? Because I don't know how you treat the models.
I totally get that. But I mean, to be honest, what's also maybe important is I don't know how much time and effort you have put into your army, but what I really see in a lot of competitive players,
painting is less important.
Yeah, they just speed paint it, whatever, just get it on the table, and that's also a difference because then you attach less value to your army, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I would just my girlfriend said at some point I'm gonna drop one of your models and it's going to break and I'm going to step on it by accident. And I'm like, I was almost tearing up just the idea of my Teclis falling down and her just waltzing over it. I'm like, oh god, please no.
Yeah.
You tear up because you have to show her the door. Like, we're done.
Yeah. Sorry, that was it. If it's Teclis or you, I mean, the choice is made.
Coming back from this.
You don't auto cast 4 spells on a 10+.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I think also, Ryan, really quick to your point about how the lucky we are with the community is that also when you look at like supply chain with the models available, so like when you have these further countries out, like I cleared the shelves buying hoppers for this in the beginning, and it was a real struggle to find where I could get another box of them. So I can imagine that that's only exasperated in these other countries that are more spread out, or they don't have as much access to them, and then there's nobody to share with. So then you are actually really limited.
Yeah.
So I think we have a really fortunate situation in the Netherlands as well.
I can tell you right now, just from looking at the shops when I go back home to the States, Nick, we have it better here than in the States.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. States does not have as good of it. It really depends on your region, and and like buying third-party retailers, you're not getting the discount you're getting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just way better here.
Yeah, I think we're in a great spot. Good point.
Yeah. One. Okay. All right. So let's move on to talking about each of the teams. I kind of thought it might make the most sense to start with the kind of administrative roles, which, of course, Jeffrey is not only a player, but the captain. So that's how Worlds works. And then some teams, if they want to, can bring a coach who is not a gaming player. This would be Douwe on our team here in the Netherlands. And unfortunately, Douwe couldn't be here tonight, but we fully plan, Jonas, I'm surprising you with this, fully plan on a post-Worlds recap with a coach. And Douwe is a great friend and one of my most played against tournament players. In fact, we've never played outside of a tournament, but I've only seen him in that environment. He's a lovely person. So really looking forward to doing that video. But we'll cover Douwe, and then Henry is going to be our assistant for the team. And Henry also functions, maybe this is a good time when we talk about him to talk about part of the charter stuff that's changed, because Jeffrey, I know recently you guys had a vote, or some people were chosen as kind of above the team type people that'll step in. I don't know exactly, maybe you know what I'm referring to here, but exactly what the purpose was here, but it seemed like it was to be, I know Mike van der Ham was doing one of these roles, and Henry was one of them as well. That's kind of meant to regulate the body as a group in general. When we get to Henry, let's talk about that too. And then we've got the other 7 players, plus we have a reserve player who was on the team last year, Olaf, who's a lovely person as well. So, and we'll just do the players in alphabetical order, Nick. You won't be given preferential treatment here. So a frowning face. But Jeffrey, let's start with you. We're going to be doing this. We're switching the slides here. Jeffrey, what do you feel like? Obviously, you're playing Slanesh. We've already talked about that, so we don't have to go too much in that. Do you want to give us some of your background here about, and it can be what you shared with Honest Wargamer Rob on the Excel spreadsheet that he's using for all of the commentary, or it could be something else that you feel like, and we'll adapt the slides accordingly.
All right. So I've been in the scene for about 2 years now. I've been part of Alliance Open for like 1.5 years. And usually when I'm a pretty competitive person by nature. So, I like to do sports. Well, not lately. I've gained some nice weight. Keep my belly warm. But
that brain though, muscled as fuck.
Right, you get it.
Yep.
No, but I'm just a really competitive person by nature. So the moment I started playing games, I was immediately searching for tournaments and trying to win and stuff. So yeah, that's just something I like. And it's a pretty complex game. So I just I think during COVID I kind of abandoned my sport and I replaced it with Warhammer, and I've just been, I don't know what happened, but I'm a TO now, captain. I'm like I said before on the Honest Wargamer show as well, I'm wearing many hats lately, but it's fun. I'm enjoying it so far, and so I just kind of naturally grew into this position, I guess. And I feel like I really try to put the team first, so I don't want it to be Jeffrey and co. Like I don't just want my friends in or something of sorts. So I just really try to be there for everyone as well. Try to guide them, help them. That's basically it. Yeah.
So Jeffrey, one of the things that is worth pointing out here is when you say competitive, I think some countries' definitions of what a competitive player's personality looks like outside of the game is very different from my experience of what Dutch competitive looks like.
Okay.
And I think you're like a kind of an exemplar for this. You are one of the chillest people. We've only played against each other once, and it was at a tournament. The last game on a very important game for that tournament, actually, because it could have gone either way. I was playing my Eternal Conflict list, and you were playing a lot of Furies within the Slaves list before that got taken out of the leaves. It was Legion.
It was Legion. Yeah.
I think, but yeah. So anyway, you are super chill the whole time. You were not like a dick. Like a lot of competitive people are very they're not fun to play.
They change, right? Some people change, like it's a different personality.
Yeah,
right?
you are a very nice person and very consistent.
Thanks.
And I think this is true of Dutch culture in general. It's very much the tall tree doesn't catch the wind kind of the idea is that everyone's just trying to be nice in general, not necessarily fakely nice or weird about it, but like the vibe, even for our most competitive players in this scene, is very much we're still going to be like netchus with each other at the end of the day. We're still going to be on good terms, right? Yeah. And like you're very much a definition of that. Even if like I think you have like a jiu-jitsu background or some. What was your sport?
Kickboxing.
Kickboxing. That was what it was. That you could see that as being super aggressive, but you have one of the most like docile kind of like you're very easy to talk to. You're always soft spoken. You're not like an aggressive person. And I think competitive might not read the same way coming from different people that hear you say that. But you are a competitive player, and I think that's a beautiful thing about the Netherlands style is that all the team, like a lot of the team members, can be very competitive simultaneously while making for a good tournament experience.
Yeah, but I just I don't know. I think competitiveness is just wanting to win and trying to. I think also part of being competitive is trying to build the best list possible and not just trying to play what you think is fun. I mean it goes hand in hand from time to time, of course, but and for me it's just really important. Of course I want to win, but I wouldn't. There's a Dutch saying. It says. Ik ga niet voor overlijken. How do you say that in English? Like, I wouldn't do bad things or trying to cheat, or I want to win fair and square.
Yeah.
And I think that's why maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
See, I don't think it's just you, but I feel like you mentioning it as a person to talk about too, and you are like a very good example of this.
Yeah,
like if I'm a person who personifies it, you might be one of the best choices I could think of because your natural demeanor is super calm.
Yeah.
But and you don't get salty in a way that like maybe you can, everyone can, but like in contrast to what I've seen with some other people in the scene, I feel like you're just very balanced, and it's that's a good position to have for a captain. I think is someone who's very kind of level-headed. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe that sounds like random flattery, but it's not meant that.
No, but I think I understand what you mean, and I've heard more often that I'm chill, and I think being salty is okay. Just try not to make it personal, and some people just do make it personal or complain all the time, and that makes for a bad experience, right? In the end, you're both there to have fun. That's why how I started the video as well. In the end, it's a hobby.
Right.
And you can really see, you're right, that the whole Dutch community feels this way. So maybe we are lucky in that regard.
But I think it's a cultural thing too. So in the interest of time as well, maybe let's talk about Douwe for a bit, and we'll have him on the stream soon. Douwe is also one of these. I mean, honestly, most of the people on the team, if not everyone, I haven't thought through the whole list, but Douwe is so lovely, and he's such a sweetheart. And I think he makes for also a very thoughtful, good coach in this sense. Now, my question is, why is Douwe kind of this is his second year being the coach, right?
Yeah.
Why? What is it about Dawa in particular? This is Dawa Klomp, and we're going to change the slides, of course, with everyone. Why? What is it about Dawa in particular that where he falls into this coach role instead of maybe 1 year switching it up and being on the team? I mean, maybe he won't 2 years, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So so for me to pick Dawa as a coach is because he, like, for a while, and maybe you know this because you faced him a couple of times. He's like, the fun type of player. He takes the most thematic list, and he tries to be competitive with it. He wants to be a bit of the oddball in the room in terms of army lists. So you don't really see in the results he's a good player, but um, I feel like he has a very good uh, helicopter view. Like he can really, and if you talk strategy with him, he makes a lot of sense. So in that regard, he's like, and he's also an IT guy, so he's really good with making the matrix and working out the Excel sheet with some of the functions in there to help us out. So yeah, those qualities are great as a coach, and like you said, he has a great personality. He's chill, um, and I do know that he is now sometimes thinking about playing, but he also has his own business, and he cannot really do a lot of games. So I think he wants to in the future if he ever finds the time to do some more games. But for now, he's perfectly fine with the coach role.
Nick, I think one of the interesting things about having you that you have gotten to know the team largely through this experience.
Yep.
Like you weren't necessarily getting to know them as well before this. Whereas clearly I'm not on the team, but I actually know a lot of the players quite well. What would you say your like 2 senses on Dawa? What's your experience been like interacting with each other?
Yeah, so the first time I got really introduced to Dow was when we did a tournament in Luxembourg. It was a 4 or 5 man team tournament, and he was playing then, so it was really a good time. And then that was really my first exposure to him, sort of leading a team. So he was really taking charge on the matrix pairings, and calling shots. So I didn't really get to know him as a coach in that scenario, but really just as one of the team. I would say my perspective really changed when we went to Germany. That was the first time I got a full experience of what it's like to have a coach. And I mentioned it in our tournament review. That was probably one of the coolest things I've had yet, to be able to bounce some ideas off of someone and like kind of think about strategy before the game. And and in Dawa himself, I really loved how he approached it. He would just pull you aside and say, "Okay, tell me what's your plan." And then I'm like, "Okay, I think I'm going to do this. I want to hit him like this." He's like, "Yeah, okay. What? Think about this. Think about this in turn 2. Think about that." And then he comes in and checks. And like Jeff said, he's really really good at the helicopter view, and really knowledgeable on everything that's going on at the table, while not being micromanaging, so he's challenging your ideas to make sure they're the best ones. And he's always there to help as well. So I get a lot of text from him saying, let me know if you need to run any ideas by me, because he's also a kids player, so that helps a lot. So yeah, I think in choosing him as a coach, you basically choose someone that has a passion for the team, has a passion for the role, so he really enjoys that aspect of it, and also knows what the fuck he's talking about. Like he's really has a really a strong understanding of tactic and strategy, and he really is good at reading the opponent, so knowing and anticipating what they're going to do. So basically looking at deployments like, yeah, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. So those timeouts that you're discussing with your captains and things like that, they're really valuable in just being able to, make the best decisions you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's also constantly trying to evaluate himself as a coach, which is fun to see. So I think after Germany, he came with the idea of, after round 3,
Mm-hmm.
if you hadn't take a time, because we didn't use a lot of timeouts last time. So he was like,
Yeah.
I barely saw any timeouts. So from now on, After battle round 3, if you haven't used it yet, you are obligated to call me.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
used mine every game because it was such a great tool to have, and it was just like
yeah.
it was almost like I brought it in my list. It was like, and now I have a timeout. I use that. It was super helpful. I was like, why wouldn't I use it? And even if you feel like you don't need it, it's just like that extra confirmation of like, hell yeah, man, that's a good plan.
Yeah. So it's good that he mentioned it, right? Because you are one of the few people that did use it a lot. But I think because a lot of our players are new again this year, we don't have a lot of players from last year. Or well, we have 3, but so 5 new players, so they have to get used to it as well,
That's such a
right?
cool
Yeah.
role, though, right? Being a coach. I
Yeah.
think I would even prefer that over being a player because it's just it's that right kind of in the middle thing where you're still part of a team and still you can still do the thing that I enjoy most about competitive gaming is that is thinking about a scenario, but you don't have to cope with the stress of rolling those dice and measuring all those little inches and being responsible for all fuck ups. Yeah, sounds
Yeah, but
like such a good time.
he's yeah, and he's such a lovely person, man. I mean, bringing water, coffee, without even needing to ask. Yeah, couldn't wish for anyone else.
And I also really appreciate like he encourages you to lose well. So even if it doesn't go the way you want it, he's like, and he says it all the time, and he makes the face. He goes, that shit, and like you feel it with you, but it's not a discouragement. And he's like, yeah, you did the best you could. That's what we could have done. Maybe we could do this next time. And then every time like it wasn't going my way or it wasn't the ideal scenario, it was a good way to bounce and learn something from it. And then it's just like, yeah, what are you gonna do? So it brings the right mentality to the team, which
Yeah.
I really appreciate.
Yeah. All right, we'll have Dawa on for more, but I definitely think if anyone out there is thinking we're just blowing smoke because he's not on the team and we want him to feel important, it's not just that. We all really value Dawa as a person in our lives. So, okay, last on the administrative totem pole, if we want to say, is Henry working as assistant, and this comes in. Henry is also a lovely person. In fact, the team in general is lovely, but Henry, I know, has, like I mentioned, is having this extra role in the team in general. Jeffrey, maybe you can speak to that a bit and to what his responsibilities are as an assistant for the team.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So while I was rewriting the charter, it's a bit awkward if you have um, a voting going on for new captaincy, and the current captain is supposed to arrange that. Again, I just want this role to not be or not have the tools to be abusive. So I kind of set up this voting commission, is what I called it, I believe, and it's consisting of 3 people, uh, uh, and they have to run all the votes where the captain is not supposed to be involved in. So right after Worlds, they will start sending out applications to people that want to run for captaincy, and they will run the whole campaign and the votes and stuff. And also maybe if any time in the future a captain uh, appears to be um, well, not the right person or not the person they thought he would be, then maybe also they can make use of this commission to reselect a captain or anything. Just I want to give a third party some power over the team. Uh, uh, so that's what he's part of as well. And about Henry himself, he's a very lovely person. He always wants to help. He's always around asking other TOs if he can help out and stuff. And when he joined the team, he was like, if you really want me, of course, take me into the team, and I'm willing to play with you guys. But I'm not joining because I want to run for a spot in the team. Um, and he just wishes to help and be a part of the journey. And yeah, that's how he kind of rolled into the assistant role. And last year we had like 2 assistants, and those were official roles. But I kind of feel awkward to ask someone to pay a lot of money to help us, to be kind of a water boy. It's kind of awkward for me. So I said, if someone wants to help, be an assistant, that's fine. I wanted to be voluntarily something that you have to volunteer for, and yeah, Henry stepped up and he's like, he was like, dude, I want to go with you guys, don't I don't want to miss anything, and yeah, so he's coming with us as an assistant, and um it's great to have someone like that around. Last year I also had a moment on the table where I kind of I ate some eggs which were like really terrible, and I kind of got a little food poisoning going on or something, and the assistant noticed that and brought me some water and extra food and stuff, and it really helped me win my game. So
Yeah.
it's great having those wonderful people around, and in the end it's a journey, right? Like you said before. So
Or if you need to
important
pee,
area.
they bring you the bottle and you pee right there.
Yeah,
I
a
I
bucket to
literally
shit.
just picture Henry like wiping your ass while you're still trying to play, like rolling the dice.
Oh Lord,
so
here
so
is thy toilet
Yeah.
paper.
Oh, what a big boy.
maybe we should make like a package for Henry, like a survival package. A bucket, wet wipes, some beer. I don't know. Yeah.
And Henry works at a lot of our local tournaments, specifically the Bloodstorm ones. Often working behind the scenes. Maybe he'll be a reserve player if needed, if someone drops out. But he's always got a smile on his face. He's a lovely guy. Nick, we just played him at our doubles tournament, and the guy was like cursing us for bringing the list.
I always have such a great time hanging out with Henry, like at all the tournaments. Like we always just gravitate and just hang out, go grab a beer, and just start bullshitting forever and getting super loud. Me and him are always ending up yelling and causing a scene
He's
Yeah.
in a
lovely.
good way.
Okay, so moving on to the first in alphabetical order of our team members that we haven't talked about yet. That would be Lex, and Lex was on the team last year. And Jeffrey, Lex is interesting. You guys have this in common, that you guys often have the TO hat on, or a kind of organizer for tournaments hat on. Sometimes to the exclusion of being able to play at tournaments. Lex is often there more in that kind of facility. So what? But he's obviously one of our great players that we have. He's playing Night Haunt this year. What else can you add about what's going on with Lex?
Yeah, Lex is a great individual, both as a person. He doesn't really like to be in front. He's just always quiet in the back doing his thing. So he's very relaxed. He always has a good sense of where the meta is. He plays a lot of different armies. He plays a lot of games. So he's just a very, very good asset to the team. Um, Very flexible. So yeah, nothing but good words for Lex. I think he might be one of the best players in the Netherlands, in my opinion.
What was there ever a doubt that he would be playing Night Haunt? That's kind of been his thing for a bit now.
Yes, there was a big doubt because we. I need to think back a little bit. There were some aspects changing, right? We've had the the last GHB cycle. The rule went away for Galatian veteran units to fight in 2 ranks, which really made Nighthound excel because they could just be low drops and have all these extra rules. And then all of a sudden he could still do it, but he had to put them in a battalion.
Yeah.
So we were in doubt for a while actually, because he really felt like he started losing more. He started losing grip on his games, and first we were bringing Nighthound and Lex on Nighthound to gather a lot of points. I was like, he's gonna be the guy that's gonna walk off the table every time and give us like 18 or 20 points, and just if the rest just uh grab some solid points, like between 8 or 12, and we might win as a team. And that all of a sudden started changing. So luckily, like I said, Lex is very flexible and willing to put in a lot of time into games. So we tried out a lot of different armies, and the good thing about Lex is I can just let him do his thing. If I trust him in a way where if he tells me something is good or bad, I know he's probably right. So we tried a few different armies, and funnily enough, he found something in Nighthaunt again, which is the new Regiment of Renown.
Oh.
And he felt like in this way, because the struggle he found was that he needed priority in Nighthaunt, because if he gets doubled, he's done. But now he felt like he had tools to protect himself against outputty armies, and yeah, no, he's in a great place. I can't wait to see him perform.
Yeah.
With Nighthaunt.
Is he the only player? I haven't looked at every single list. Is he the only player using a Regiment of Renown?
I think so. Yeah, one of
Wow.
the I think so. Yeah, it was a great find, because actually now he has like I don't know who's familiar with Nighthaunt, but you had the Harridans removing your ward when they strike, and then you had the Blade guys doing mortals on impact, and the Harridans also had -1 to be wounded when they charged, if I remember correctly. And now with the Regiment of Renown bringing a corpse guard and zombies, he has an extra screen. They are -1 to be wounded, and they give you -1 to your ward roll. So it's not removing your ward entirely, but so he has like Blade guys and Harridans had sex, and he has their kids.
I assume he's not using a black coach.
Sorry?
I assume he's not using the black coach anymore.
No, he's not. And it's funny actually, because he was on another army for a while, and right before cutoff, he was like, "No, I'm going back to Nighthaunt." And I'm
What was the other army?
He looked into Nurgle, because last year he also had Nurgle, but he found that they struggled with battle tactics a lot, and we kind of changed our mind on needing to bring a defensive army.
Right.
If you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
some armies play more of a safe game, winning 12-8 or something. And yeah.
What is your like engagement with Lex been like since you joined the team?
Yeah. Are you asking?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
me or
I'm not
you?
sure.
Who are you asking?
What's
Ryan?
he asking you?
Nick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, it's been great. So like we mentioned before, Lex is letting me borrow his army, which is super nice of him. So I've been having fun with that. And then giving me pointers and helping me out a lot in the beginning, building the list and locking it in for what it would be. And then I played a couple of games with him. I don't know that I played him with my Gits, but I played a lot against him with Flesh Eaters against his Nighthaunt lists, and it was quite difficult. So, but he did teach me a lot about playing against Nighthaunt, how to really do the timing about your attacks and when to go forward, when to pull back. So I think Ryan, though it's a doubles, we saw a little bit of the taste of how that interaction can go when you put Gits against Nighthaunt. So it's been super helpful.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm gonna start with we've got two Mitchells on the team, and we've got two Nicks, right? So we've got all these doubles, and Nico and Nick on the team. The two Mitchells have different spelling, but I'll start with Mitchell de Boer, who is I think Mitchell was one of my very first games I played, like number 5 ever. And he's not training a whole lot right now because he's finishing his thesis. He's a very smart dude and finishing out his degree program, which isn't too crazy different from what I've done in data science. But he's on the medical side of it. I want to say it has something to do with, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here, but it has something to do with neuro stuff. But it could be biology. Anyway.
I don't know. Bio something.
The question is, if you shoot yourself in the foot, could he heal you?
No, he's doing. He's not on the medical side.
Okay.
So anyway, Mitchell's a lovely guy, and I've talked a big talk about him. We almost had him on the channel a couple times because he's won a number of tournaments recently. GT's playing this Oakenbrow Tree Lords list, and I would argue that he's kind of the guy who put it on the map.
Yes.
That it like didn't really exist in the way that it does now, and even still, if you look at the representation for Sylvaneth at Worlds, he's like one of the only 2 or 3 guys that are doing a list like it with the Tree Lord build. And Mitchell is a fantastic player, especially with this list. And one of the things I love is, Jeffrey, back to your point, you were talking about people being flexible on the team, and we already referenced this, but he was originally going to pick up another army, not an army that he necessarily collects. It was just going to be done for Worlds. And he ended up proving through a couple tournaments that he can really make his army work and do it in a way that probably a lot of people aren't going to see coming. And he's a great player. He's a great guy. He's super sweet. He's one of the younger guys on the team. I think it's him and Morgan. They're the 2 youngest. And Nick, let's go in reverse here. Like, I know you have, you and Mitchell have hit it off too. But what do you want to say about Mitchell and your experience thus far? Getting to know each other.
He's my guy. We have a great time playing against each other. So we've paired up a couple of times, and I think between all of our total games, we're probably around like a 50-50, 60-40 on win-lose. So he taught me so much about like how to play his list, how to go against it. So it's been super fun, and we always have a good time getting drunk after the rounds as well. So our humor matches quite a bit. And then he really always matches my energy, which is a dangerous game to play because then I always take it to the next one, and then it just keeps getting worse and worse. But yeah, super good guy.
Jonas, you've got some experience with the Nick energy. Last week, we all hung out together. I think, Jonas, you were a little bit shell-shocked at first. And then
Yeah, I mean, I almost forgot how it felt to hang out with Nick. I don't know. I don't know why I wasn't prepared for it. I honestly... I enjoyed it, and I think I made it seem like I didn't, but it was just so full on, and it was I needed all my brain capacity to deal with your lists, Ryan. That I was like, Nick, I can't buffer all your knowledge, all your nonsense from your knowledge.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love that. I mean, and then we're moving on to eating in a restaurant, and then the bullshit stops, and it's only serious talk. I'm like, what the fuck happened here?
Yeah, I'm 2% serious, 98% nonsense.
But that 2%, man.
Yeah, it'll get you every time.
So, Jeffrey, thoughts on Mitchell DeBoer?
Yeah, so he's always been a good player. He's been out of the scene for a while because he was busy with his school and stuff, so he skipped some tournaments but he did show up to training days every now and then, and lovely guy. And so I really saw potential in him, and the moment he really surprised me in a good way is I gave him Daughters of Cain once. And the fucking speed he learned this army. He was like the first game he ever played with Daughters of Cain, and he was playing, you have to imagine, he was playing the Witch Elf spam. So no Morathi, Cauldron, a lot of elves, a lot of moving buffs and auras and stuff, and it's not that it's hard to play, but it's you know what it's like to pick up a new army, right? And he just grabbed my models and he played the game perfectly within time, didn't forget anything, and I was stunned at the speed he learned stuff. So I really think he's a good player. And then we struggled a little bit actually because he's a good Nighthound player, but Lexus as well. So that was already our first little bump down the road, like making a decision there. And Lex is also pretty familiar with Sylvanet, so they were talking a lot, and they both actually agreed that Sylvanet at the time wasn't gonna cut it, right? And then he just floated around for a while, not knowing what to play. And all of a sudden he struck us with his Sylvanet Oakenbrow list, and he just crushed it, man. And that's all you can wish for in a player, right? Just not having to guide him, and he's like, this is what I'm gonna play, and it works out. That's the perfect scenario. So I was really happy, and I just went with the flow, let him do his thing, and then here we are. And I think you're right, by the way. I think he inspired a lot of other players to play the same list.
Imagine him finding that kind of list right before, a couple months before admitting your lists, and him just surprising everyone at Worlds with a completely new archetype. That would be so cool. I mean, imagine the power that you must feel when you know your list is very strong, but no one's has actually ever played against it. Or I mean, obviously a few people will have, but it's not like commonly known. I kind of compare a little bit to Ryan's Barak Zone list, whereas also it's not the obvious way to play Cardron Overlords, but it still packs such a major punch and it's such a different play style to what KO usually is about. I feel it's almost the same with the Oakenbrow stuff. It's almost a completely different army.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I mean, that's the ideal, I think, for a Johnny type player like myself, you, Dawa, I think, is that you come up with a list that sneaks under the radar and ends up also being really good, but isn't playing the meta. So, and he made the meta. Like, that's kind of the gold standard of what you want it to be. He made one of the lists.
Sure.
And I think also one of the cool things about that, Jeff, was it really, to speak to your captaincy, is that the entire time when we were picking lists, you were saying, this is my opinion. If you think you have something better, prove it, do it. And I think that's exactly what Mitchell went out to do, because we all kind of went, Sylvaneth, and he went, nah, I'm going to do it. And then we were like, okay, done deal.
Yeah, that's perfect, right?
So I think it was a really cool moment in the group to kind of like say something, but then also live by it, right? So you demonstrated that kind of area of just like, we're a team, and if you think you've got something, we'll support you in that. We just gotta work out the kinks.
And I remember being very proud because he won the Bloodstorm GT, and then not long after I hosted the Alliance Open Masters together with Tom. And a lot of the team members were present, and he just won it again. And I was like, man, this dude, let's go. Yeah, I was really proud of him. He did a great job, and I'm sure he will in the next week as well.
Okay, and let's keep going. So Mitchell Stahl is our next player, and this is the guy that we referenced. That I've always known Mitchell as a KO player. Like, he has a very distinctive play style, or his army. We've actually never gotten to play against each other. But you just know that he's a KO player. He's been bringing it for a long time. And my understanding was, leading into world selection and stuff, you guys were partly leaning him into doing ogres because he was under the impression that KO wasn't going to pull the, enough weight as a Worlds team, and he hadn't been playing it for the past 6 months or so because he didn't like how it functioned in the old GHB. This is my understanding. You can jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong. But then, of course, the new KO book came out. He tries it out, realizes, wait a minute, I already know how KO is, and now there's also a new build that's super dominant. And the guy's just a natural fit. Like, it's hard to picture someone who knows KO and who's built to play it as well as someone like Mitchell Stahl. And so, I don't know. You guys want to throw in your 2 cents about this? Am I off with my assessment there?
No.
Yeah, you go ahead, Nick.
No, the thing that comes to mind every time that I play with Mitchell that I always walk away from is that he's a super thoughtful player. So like, to your point, Ryan, he really knows KO in and out. When he was playing ogres, he knew what he was doing, and so like he really thinks this whole thing through. And a lot of the times when I play him, he'll tell me how the game is going to go. He's like, okay, so I take turn, you're going to do this and do that and do that, and then okay, you win. And so he just really can see everything happening, and I think with that sort of foresight, I don't ever notice him making critical errors unless he wanted to. Like, we're going to test this. I'm not sure which way it'll go, so let's try it, and then if it doesn't work out, we'll re-rack and do it again. So I really, every time I play him, like I said, I walk away and going, he really thought everything that he did out very well. And then being in KO, I think that's critical, because if you're out of position or something, you don't have a lot of ways to make up for that. So you really got to be precise and do what you need to do and do it correctly. And I think he's a perfect fit. He nails it every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think because you have to remember KO was not dominant for a while, and during this time he kept on bringing it, and he kept on winning tournaments. It was small RTTs and stuff, but um, yeah, he kept surprising people, always trying to push. So he had some great results, and obviously some people know this, but Mitch has also been my close friend for like 16 years now, or even longer. I don't even know anymore. So, but I also know his affinity with games. You know, he's always played strategy games, and he's very quick in picking this stuff up and having good strategies when it comes to gaming. And yeah, so what happened was I became captain, and I've because people have been asking for Mitch for over a year already, you know, to join the team, because he was getting a big name for himself in the scene. And so I finally convinced him to join the team, but he was the one that told me, like, hey, you know, KO can do his thing. Maybe it's good in teams because you can pair it, but it's really pairing sensitive, and you don't want to bring too much of those armies to World. So, you know, maybe I should try something else out, and I can always fall back on KO. But you know, so we talked about it, and Ogres at the time was like really good, and it kind of felt like the same playstyle. Like not really, because there's also melee involved, but you know, he still has access to shooting, to playing the long game. And he actually performed well. And at the time he was like, you know, Ogres is more of a solid army that loses less matchups. And then the KO book dropped, and yeah, no, he's a natural. He's a natural KO player. So
And to be clear, with Ogres, correct me if I'm wrong, but he wasn't playing the list. He wasn't playing the full-on Beast Call Raiders. He was playing. You say he was using for shooting. There were some the normal guys with the cannons, and then the long range cannons too, right? The artillery pieces in there.
yeah, he was playing the Frostlord on Stonehorn, 2-foot heroes, and the Mournfang as battle line, and then 3 Iron Blasters.
Exactly. So it was a more mixed arms. It wasn't the because if someone at home is associating ogres with Beast Claw, and then the captain of the Dutch team says, "Oh well, ogres plays just is very similar to KO." You're like, "No, it's not."
No, you're right. You're right.
But no, yeah, the shooting version of the list got tuned up in this most recent book. It's funny that you say that KO used to be a list that an army that was very pairing dependent, and the funny thing is it's not anymore.
No.
It's very much like you can throw it against almost anyone and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
So
The 3-up save is insane army wide. Come on, man.
if you're in the boat, if you're in the boat, if you're not in the boat. Okay, let's move on. So Morgan is one of the only players I think on the team whose membership or like army ship, if you want to call it that, what he was going to play was never really up for question. I know that Morgan plays a few different armies. Sylvaneth, I think, is one of them. I think I've even seen him play Stormcast, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the only time we played against each other. But Morgan has made his name known in our local scene as a Zinj player, and he's a very thoughtful Zinj player. And he's, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of player rank of the Dutch players that were represented at the last Osnabrück tournament, he actually had the highest record in terms of points won. So he knows what he's doing. Zinj is obviously a strong build. Jeffrey, what else can you bring to the table about what Morgan's playing and his personality, what he brings to the team?
Yeah, so Morgan is a really young player, and I made him go through the first cut just because I wanted to get him along with the team and get the experience in, and I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to get him into the team. But he's just like in the perfect momentum right now. He's just, he's winning. He's performing pretty well. The army suits him really well because I've seen him, on the table a couple of times already, and he's fast. He's very willing. He's always coming to training days and stuff. So yeah, he really won me over on that part, and I'm glad we brought him. And you're right, he was like the I think he was the first person I locked into his army. Like right after selection, I was like, okay, you're playing Zinj, and now let's find out what the rest is going to do. Yeah, no, he's the perfect Zinj player, and I don't know if you have anything to add, Nick. You've played against him a couple of times, right?
Yeah, so I think you pretty much covered all the bases. He's a really, really natural Siege player. I think thoughtful is the right word for it. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he needs to do in each phase. I think you rarely catch him making mistakes with that. I think the other thing, the standout outside of the game is, like you said, always coming to the trainings and always the practice. And I don't think, because people don't know him, how hard that actually is and how far away he lives. To actually commit to do it. I think he traveled for like 5 hours once just to train with us.
Yeah. He comes from Ceylon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And 5 hours, imagine, that's just the trip to training, and then he has to go 5 hours back.
Yeah.
So his commitment is on another level.
It's insane.
You would be much closer. Do you wanna like merc for the Netherlands?
I was like, holy hell, is he moving 5 hours and then 5 back? What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does it without complaining. Like it's never been a complaint of like, oh, I have to come to these things. He's like, no, I'll be there. I can do it. And so I think that's probably one of the most admirable things there is that
does he not sleep?
Dedication. He runs off of magic. I don't know if you heard us saying he was
Zinj magic. Sorcerer's rituals.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny you say that because Morgan is easily the most like. If there was this is not what he actually does, but if I had to pick one player I've ever played against that I thought he might be on coke, it would be Morgan.
Yep.
Our first game was at the first AO Dutch Masters a year and a half ago or whatever, and it was the very first. I was supposed to play against a much better matchup. I played against Morgan and was like, "What the fuck is going on?" I had to ask him to calm down because, like, I was like, "Dude, it's too early for me. I can't." It's just he's always so positive and so energetic, and I think his youth also adds to this. So to answer this question, Jonas, I think part of it is that he's just energetic as fuck, and he's got like a nuclear power reactor going off inside of him. So I think like 5 hours to him, he's just like, by the time he gets there, he's like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, he's just got 5 hours to hype himself up.
I mean, the number of models he has to touch. With the pinks, you have to be energetic, right? No.
I love it. Throws him in a bucket.
Yeah. He has like this buckets with the blues and brims, and he's just like, okay, throwing and.
Speaking of number of models to touch while in Amsterdam, Team Ireland's also playing. So. Who knows if they're going to be going out and having a good time too. What was it that Rob said when the first matchup was U.S. versus Ireland, and he said in the pairings video, he said something the two teams most likely to get plastered together. I'm ready for that excitement too.
Yeah. Also, sorry, another note on Morgan, by the way, because we mentioned we went to Germany, and Zinj is usually an army that wins, but doesn't win big, right? And he actually scored the most points of our whole team.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. It was not just that, but it was of all the Dutch players, because we had 2 teams plus me playing at Osnabrück. He performed the best out of all of us in terms of points. So.
Yeah, and that's already a feat in itself, right? And then he does it with Zinj as well. So he really proved himself.
Okay, we got 2 more players. Oh no, Nick, we've got you. Nick, Jonas, why don't you start with talking about Nick for a second? You know this guy.
Say nice things about me.
I mean, I only have nice things to say. God, what can I tell about Nick? He really loves flesh eater chords, man.
Sure do.
I think Nick is very analytical, and you wouldn't combine his way of thinking with the armies he plays.
I agree.
Like when you look at Nick's armies and how he approaches things, it's so wildly different from how I imagine those players to be. Like when you think about someone who's playing Gits or Flesh Eater Courts, you don't think about someone who's going like, yeah, maybe, well, you could have done that, and then like talking with you about how your turn could have went instead of just smashing your face in with a Flesh Eater Courts terror guys, right? So I really love that about Nick. The first game that we played, I had very bad luck, but he also just outplayed me like in almost every aspect. And I loved how calmly he approached my saltiness, because I really tried to hide my saltiness, but I'm not immune to it, sadly. And he was like, yeah, I understand. I was getting very lucky. I mean, you could have done this as well, but there are a lot of options. And I'm like, God damn, this guy is good. He's the guy that you love to lose to, you know? It just feels deserved when you lose to Nick.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey, you've already talked a good bit about choosing Nick for the team and everything. So for the elephant in the room, Nick is the only, and this is why Jonas thought you were a merc, Nick is the only non-Dutch person on the team. Has this introduced any new elements to the vibe that you didn't see last year? Like, I think both of us have a different, cultures exist for a reason. Like, they are a thing. We can't ignore them. Nick and I have a different vibe in our scene than some of the rest of the players. How you would identify it, I don't know what you would say. But is there anything that Nick brings as the token American on the team that kind of changes how things interact, other than you guys having to speak in English more often than you otherwise would?
No, I think Nick brings a great. He has a great personality, right? So he's joking all the time, and I think he's great for our atmosphere. So he's really an addition to the team in that regard. So I honestly I think more people should be like Nick, because he plays pretty well, but he's there to enjoy his hobby.
Yeah,
and you can really see that as well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Nick is obviously one of my best friends here in your world, as it is at work. And Nick and I are kind of touring Warhammer buddies. So we've shared many a hotel room and had many conversations outside of the Warhammer sphere. But one of the things I can definitely say that people might not realize about Nick, as you get to know him, is that Nick is extremely good at being a diplomat. And he's a project manager type person. He knows how to weave kind of like his influence in a way that makes everyone walk away feeling happier at the end of the day with the decisions that have been made. And he knows how to not let things get personal, and even though it might be boiling underneath for him. Nick knows how to walk that in a way that I don't. And Nick is not only a good advisor, which is why I think Jonas, we were talking that he would make a good coach. But Nick is also a fantastic friend once you get to kind of work into his friend group. So
generous. I mean, if he only
yeah.
likes you like for 50%, he gives you all the 3rd edition battle tomes, I've heard.
Two. Let's just clear this up here and now. He only gave me 2. It was lovely, but I bought the rest of them. It's not like Nick is funding my whole.
And it was a thank you. He watched my cat for like 2 weeks. So.
I'm just spreading fake news here, guys. I mean, I'm a content creator. What else should I do?
No joking here, buddy. It's all seriousness.
All right.
No, but thank you all.
But also, I would like to add something in regards of Nick. So, because it was fun what Jonas just mentioned. Because when you ask Nick what kind of player he is, he will tell you he's a pure destruction player, right?
More or less.
Just go in and smash people's faces. But the funny thing is, like, let's be honest, he's like the Flesh Eater Squad player in the Dutch scene. He's been playing them for a while. He has,
For a while.
uh, yeah, he he has gotten some good results with them. So that's why he already caught my eye. And then, he came training, and then I remember doing a team format. You remember? Like it was a
Yeah,
training
yeah, yeah,
day,
yeah.
but I made it like a team format, and it was the final day before I made my selection. And I saw him strategize there, helping in pairings process, and then you see an entirely different person. And I also remember that you, Ryan, put out a video on the Bloodstorm where we faced each other. So I was curious, right? Because I wanted to see what you had to say about our game. And then I heard Nick talk, and I was like, yeah, I need him on my team, man. This guy knows what the fuck he's talking about.
So Jeffrey, you're saying without the Strategoi channel, Nick might not have been.
That's correct. That's
All
correct.
credits to you, Jonas.
Well,
gonna
to
have to go
Ryan,
back
to be honest, because
Yeah.
he's making those tournament reports.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So, but we all love Nick. Okay, so let's talk about Nico. Nico is our Slaves to Darkness player we referenced earlier, but who's playing the Serpent? What's it called? Splinter Fang and list, and bringing all the guys back, the Ravagers list.
Yeah.
But Nico, for a long time, was very successfully playing the Nurgle Flies list and was kind of like often dominating tournaments, being in the top 3 here in our scene for quite a while. Nico is also someone who, in game, you see him trying to learn how he can work it out for the next game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get the feeling that Nico, he's not one of these people that's just playing the game and then walks away from it. He's like already thinking about how he can do better for the next game in the middle, maybe even like to his detriment sometimes, because if he was on a clock, he wouldn't be able to use it. But you can see those wheels turning. And I love playing against Nico because it feels like this interactive experience where you see that he's not just playing a game with you, he's growing from the experience. I think he's one of those guys who is processing things on kind of a different level, or in a different manner at least, than a lot of us do when we're playing our games. So, Nick, what's your experience been with Nico thus far? Have you had much kind of one-on-one time?
Yeah, so I had a decent amount, but when I first joined into the Dutch scene, I think that was also kind of the time where Nico was really dominating, and so I never really played against him. I only just knew him as the guy always wearing the football jerseys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always recognized he was, every time I went, he was just nailing the podium every single time, and so I was like, oh man, that guy. Oh, being new, I was like, I hope I don't get paired against him because, like, I don't want to get destroyed. And as I grew in the community, I was like, I want to play that guy. I want to try it. And I never really got the pairing. And then eventually we did. And those were some of the best games that I had. I learned so much from playing against him. Again, I know we keep throwing up Thoughtful. Thoughtful is a good one for how he does it. But again, I think, Brian, you nailed it really well with he's learning from the game, and in doing that I'm learning from him a lot. So the thing that I always try to take away from my games is, one, my army as well, but what do I learn about my opponent's army and their style of playing, and how can I apply that and solidify that knowledge and make sure that it's not always going to be Nico playing the list, but now I know what it's capable of. So I think he's a really good teacher in that way. And so practicing and doing these training days, and also the just the team meetings and his feedback, I think he's a really good teacher that way. So it's been a great experience.
Jeffrey.
Yeah. So Nico has been around for a long time, way longer than me. He has also played a lot of 40k, also in the Dutch team and stuff. So he brings a lot of experience. And yeah, like you've been mentioning, he's been dominating for a while, and not just with the Nurgle Flies, also before that with Nighthound, with Daughters of Cain, with I don't even know how many armies he dominated with. Grabbed a lot of podiums, and I think the reason he's performing so well is he's always trying to find the unknown. Like Like for example, now a lot of armies are bringing Beast of Chaos. In the Netherlands, it's not a faction that's well represented here. So he's just, trying to find games every week, and he's also this type of person. And maybe I'm echoing you guys a bit, but when he loses and he drops his jaw, it's not because he's salty, but he will literally ask you like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how can I prevent this from ever happening again? So he has the right mindset to grow, and so yeah,
And
no,
he's a lovely person. Like,
yeah,
this again emphasizing, I don't think there's a single personality on this team that isn't a lovely person and who I enjoy playing games with. It's a great team. So,
thanks.
quickly moving on, we've got who's the only. Is that true? No, I haven't played against Lex, but of the 8 guys that are on the team, I think he's the only. Oh no, Mitchell's tall as well, so never mind. But Ivar, I haven't gotten to play against either. Ivar's kind of been known to me as this guy who loves bringing a lore seeker in a list. Every single list he brings. So Jonas, why do you think so? This guy's bringing a lore seeker as an ally in so many lists. What do you think? Because he was winning a good bit of things with his lore seeker in his list. As a Lumineth-based channel, maybe this is a good chance to let you pipe in here. What are you thinking in hearing about this guy?
Is he still doing that with a new battle
I know
tone?
He tried.
Chaos, and he can.
Yeah.
He tried.
I mean, it was just so strong before, right? Because you could just auto cap an objective outside of your territory, and it was very hard to take it off someone. If they wanted to take it off you, you had to dedicate a certain amount of resources to killing that lore seeker, which wasn't easy. If there was good terrain on the table, man, you could abuse that little guy. I do think it lost some utility now. Ironically, even while we're still in the Galician champion season. So that's why I immediately ask: is he still doing that? Because they're just not as good anymore. But I love it. I love that he's bringing Lumineth or that he brought Lumineth to every game.
What? Yeah, was he playing it in the Dragons list before he switched to Beast Guys? Was he doing a little bit?
Like I said, he tried. So that's why I was laughing so hard, because he's kind of known for it also within the team. But I simply said no. Yeah, so no, he's been really solid, and he also brings the experience from last year. Same with Lex. So that's good to have in the team. And but he's been struggling a little bit because, he's been on Stormcast for a while, and before he was known as a good Living Cities players when the Fulminators was still very good. And then we went to Germany, and we were like, oh, fuck, man, Stormcast is not gonna cut it, I think. I mean, he can make it work somehow, but it wasn't ideal. So we really took some days to brainstorm, and at one evening I was thinking what kind of a player he is, and he was very good at Living Cities, as I just mentioned, and all of a sudden I was like, what
Deep
about
Strike.
Beast of Chaos, right? They also it's kind of the same trick. You try to look for a gap, maybe shoot a gap in the opponent's army or whatever, and try to capitalize on opponent's mistakes. And he was like, yeah, that might work. And yeah, he's been doing pretty well ever since, to be honest. So yeah.
Nick, I haven't gotten to play him yet. Have you guys played?
Yeah, so I've played him against him, I think, once in total. So I played against his beast list recently to train a little bit, practice, and then he was on the team for the Luxembourg tournament.
Yeah.
So that was my first ever real experience with Ivar ever, and then ultimately going through with the Worlds training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that puts us at our full. Oh no, I want to talk about Olaf too. Olaf is our reserve player. So Jeffrey, what's Olaf playing as a reserve player? What does that mean? Does he have to step in and play the army of the person who's falls out? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so they did change the rulings, which is great, by the way. So last year it was just, you know, someone drops out, the reserve grabs the army of that player, and he just pilots that army. But this year we have a different ruling. So what basically happens is if someone drops out, you can swap a player to that position, to that army of the person dropping out, with the person already in your team. So you can basically guide what army the reserve player is going to play, if if that makes sense.
You're allowed to rearrange your team a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just one swap.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so let's say Nick drops out and we have Gitz, and I don't know.
Lex wants to
Me.
play Gits.
Yeah, or Lex wants to play Gitz as well, and Olaf happens to be very good at Nighthaunt.
Yeah.
We just put Olaf on Nighthaunt, and Lex can grab
Yeah.
Nick's Gitz.
That's a good change.
Yeah, I really love it.
Mhm.
So yeah, and Olaf has experience with some armies. He also always has the right mentality. You know, he's very supportive towards the team. Of course, you know, he was a bit bummed that he didn't make it this year, but I mean, him coming as a reserve says a lot about him as a person. You know, he's always there on training days. He's always very active in the WhatsApp and in the groups, trying to talk strategies and help and stuff. So yeah, I'm glad to have him as a reserve. Really positive guy, a good person to have a beer with as well. So I hope he doesn't hang out with Nick too much. Because otherwise, yeah. Hangover Part 4.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, there's always Nick and me there, so you know, we're that push-pull relationship. But that's one subtopic. Olaf is one of my favorite people in the community. He's the kind of guy that gives you a big hug if he knows you. He's a sweetheart. He's also won a number of tournaments. It's just been a lot of them were with Gargans, and the thing is, Gargans sit in a weird place right now. He's also a good Ideneth player. He plays Gits a lot nowadays, I think, but obviously he's not playing. You know, the Squigs list. I guess Nick, if you for some reason had to drop out, would he be the default setting? I mean, with that, you guys wouldn't swap anyone out. You just have him play your army instead of having jump in.
With his experience, I would say that's a good choice.
Yeah. He does things strategically, like you say. He's in the chats all the time, and he's like you say, he's got a really positive vibe. Nick, do you have anything to add on Olaf?
Not anything more than what you guys are saying. I just a big thanks to him because he's been helping me like with Gits, like giving me advice as well. And then I always like to check in with his games on training days of how it's going because he played more of the Trog build, so it was interesting to see how that side was going, and then kind of just bouncing ideas off. And then he's been more than generous, saying if I need any models or anything like that, just ask. So yeah, he's super nice to have on the team.
Yeah. Okay, so this has been a marathon. We did it. You guys, thank you so much for being here. Before we close out, is there anything you guys feel like you really wanted to hit on before this is over? We'll come back at it with a Dawa kind of recap. And Jeffrey, if you want to be on that too, we can have a recap with the captain and coach at the same time. Whatever combination makes the most sense. But so keep in mind, we will be back here to talk about a debrief afterwards. Is there anything else that comes up that you guys really wanted to talk about? Jonas, maybe you had something?
Yeah, I mean, I had some questions loaded in the chamber, but we've been going for such a long time that I'm almost afraid to ask. But let me reiterate some of the questions that I asked to Team Serbia as well. I asked them what position that they would be fine to end up on. What kind of position are you guys aiming for? I mean, obviously you're always aiming to be first place, but from what kind of result would you be pleased as a team?
My personal goal is to end up higher than last year.
Okay.
That's something I would be pleased with. But I do think we have a strong team, and like I said, I'm always competitive minded. I also have like a bit of a sports background, and you know, if we didn't aim for first spot, we shouldn't be here. So I'm going for that fucking podium, man.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, I mean it's the same answer. I want to be on that podium. My shelf needs another plaque.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
I love it.
Yeah.
I heard. I was talking to Michael in the Antwerp AOS chat, and he mentioned that he felt like that the world setting right now feels much more competitive and serious than last year. He almost felt like last year was more of a more of a casual setting, even though it was competitive, and now it's a little bit more cutthroat. Not necessarily in a negative way, just much more serious. Like people are there to win. And I really love seeing that attitude in you guys. I wish you the best of luck. I mean, I'll be there at one of the days. I'm gonna cheer for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, now you got too many people. You have to split your focus between maybe Belgium, the Netherlands, Serbia, whatever else you find interesting.
I mean, if you know anything about Belgians, that we're not nationalistic people at all. So, I mean, I wish the best to Team Belgium, but I have no affiliation with them as much I have with the team from Serbia and Netherlands right now. So,
I do have a question for you then. I hope I don't put a crack in your friendship or anything. But if we face Serbia, who are you rooting for?
Ah, God, I gotta say, they made me an honorary member, so I mean,
Oh fuck, we lose.
I really put him on the spot here.
Yeah.
I mean, Marco is right there. Like, you're an honorary member now. Like, oh wow, that was very easy. Thank you, much appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the answer is Serbia.
The answer is the one that has the coolest Lumineth army. So.
Shit, we lost. We don't have a Lumineth.
Okay,
Aha, there you go. There you go.
You know, the funny thing though is that I really am pulling for you guys in a big way. Like, I feel very much a part of the scene, and obviously was training a little bit with you guys, and then like, as I think it's obvious from this, I know your players pretty well, and I think of you guys as friends and comrades, and am super looking forward to seeing you guys do super well at this tournament too, and am very much pulling for you. So I'm a Team Netherlands fan as well. So you know, I'm on my own team. I feel lucky to be able to be a part of the whole experience and hang out with you guys and have an excuse to have a call like this. So thank you for being here, you guys. We'll do more decompression later. But in the meantime, good luck prepping, and I can't wait to see you guys both at singles if you're hanging out. I'm going to be going all the days just to like hang out with people. Nick, are you going at all?
I want to try. I want to check out some of the singles. I might not go to all of it, but I definitely want to check it out and maybe help set up if I can.
Yeah. And Jonas, definitely, we look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, so. I'll be there on the weekend, but I have to plan the dates still. But I was actually going to ask you after the video, so there we go.
All right, so let's wrap it up there. Thank you to Team the Netherlands for making the time for this, and hopefully we get some more of the players' feedback over time too. We can only just fit 4 people's faces in this screen. Thanks to everyone that's been following along this long, and we're looking forward to anyone's reactions in the Discord or in the comment section below. And best of luck to everyone that's playing at Worlds, but especially Team the Netherlands and Serbia, of course. All right. Until next time, Ryan out.
Good luck, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.